In this video, I'll walk you through the difference between highlights and reflected light, what causes them, how do they look, where are they located, and it's in my book, the art instruction course, Color and Light, where the Kindle is only $7. When a TV is off, it's basically a giant dark mirror. We see the table, the sofa, and the curtains. We see a reflection of the room. This is window light reflected off a blue mug. We see the bright glass and the dark parts blocking the light, like the window frames and the curtains. But we don't see the desk underneath. And why is that? The TV screen is so smooth that when parallel light rays hit it, they're parallel when they reflect off the TV screen, so we see a mirror image. But this mug is a rougher surface, so when light rays hit it, they're no longer parallel when they reflect off. This diagram shows you the difference between direct light, which forms highlights, and the less powerful reflected light. So when light comes from a light source, like a window, it hits the mug and causes a highlight. This highlight looks exactly like the window, and it sends that information to our eye, so we see the little window on the mug. In contrast, light from the window hits the desk. The desk reflects only blue light since it's a blue desk. It absorbs all non-blue light, and it causes reflected light on the mug. It does not cause a highlight, and that reflected light is sent to our eye so that we see it. The highlight has one bounce on the mug, whereas the reflected light has two bounces. It bounces on the desk and it bounces on the mug. Reflected light is weaker than the highlights for two reasons. One, because it has two bounces rather than one, and light is lost with every bounce. And secondly, because the desk absorbs all non-blue light. So in both cases, it loses energy. This kettle is about as shiny as the blue mug, and we see two different highlights. This one is from a ceiling light, and this one is from a lamp on a table. Because these two emit light, they cause highlights which have only one bounce from the lamp to the kettle to our eye. Only one bounce on the kettle. We don't see the objects in the room which reflect light and which involve two bounces. Light from the light source hitting something in the room, which reflects light and goes to the kettle, and then that light goes to our eyes. So reflected light involves two bounces, and they are not considered highlights. Notice the rectangular highlights on these eggs, and what do you think they're from? They're from the long rectangular lights on the ceiling that emit light. Highlights are reflections of the light source, so they tell us what the light source is because they have the same shape. So here, the highlights have the same shape as the ceiling lights. There's also reflected light on these eggs, but those aren't highlights. These dark area here is from things in the room that reflect light, and this area is from the wall. Since the wall seems to be reflecting more light than the things in the room, the top of the egg is a little lighter than the bottom. The same events happen when a rock gets wet. It forms a thin layer of water that fills in all the tiny bumps on the rough surface, and this creates a smooth, glassy skin over the rock. Because the surface is now smooth, we see a reflection of the sun in these white areas on the wettest parts. And these are the highlights on the surface, which means that they hide what's underneath, so we don't see the actual pattern of the rock itself. This dry rock has no water on its surface to cause highlights, so instead we see its true texture with little speckles and colors. Both highlights and reflected light have two main traits that they share. They both follow the surface of the object and they hide what's underneath. So here's a highlight and it follows the curve of the form, and it's maximum where the light is perpendicular to the surface. In this kettle, these are highlights that follow the form, and this is reflected light that also follows the form. And here is a highlight that obscures the pattern. In summary, highlights are one bounce light from a light source that emits light, forming an image of that light source on the surface, like the rectangular ceiling lights. Reflected light is a two bounce light from something in the room, forming an image of that thing on the surface. And reflected light is less intense than highlights because it's a two bounce light and because the thing absorbs some of that light. They're both on the surface, so they follow that surface and they obscure what's underneath, like highlights and reflections on a lake obscuring the bottom of the lake. For those of you who find these videos a little challenging, I also have a YouTube channel called Ellen's Art for Beginners with a book on Amazon, also called Ellen's Art for Beginners, which is only $7.